Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is Dave Quadrelli. Joining me is Harman Dial. One of us feeling more festive than the other. What's going on, Harm? You don't like Christmas? What you got against Christmas?
Yeah, I'm the Grinch. I hate Christmas. No, I just love wearing black. I don't know what it is. I swear I'm not emo, but yeah, I don't have. You know what it is? I'm too lazy. I'm too lazy to go out and buy a Santa hat. I'm too lazy to go out and get a Christmas sweater. I just like wearing the same colors most days. Not every day, but most days.
I need a new Christmas sweater. I will admit it. This one, it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle
Yeah,
one. It's
we
pretty
talked
cool.
about this last year. This is
Yeah, I wear it every year. I need a new one. I need to change up in the Christmas sweater department. People in the chat like my hat. People in the chat like my sweater. We've got a lot to talk about. We're starting at jolly. People in the chat also saying, sharpen your pitchforks. Yeah, sure. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about Elias Pettersson. We're going to talk about JT Miller. I talked about the chat there. And if you want me to talk about your chat to us, send us a super chat. Our super chat charity partner this season is the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Okay, Harm, let's start there. Let's start with Riftgate. The title of today's show is Moving On from Riftgate. And ultimately, it's not going to be up to us if we get to move on from this. It's not really up to us that we are talking about this. This is a story. We have to talk about it. So let's just go through it. I want to start at the morning skate before the game against the Ottawa Senators, where Quinn Hughes and Tocchet spoke, and then post-game, we heard Elias Pettersson. The next day, we heard JT Miller. So that's kind of our timeline of events here. But Quinn Hughes talking about the rumored rift in the Canucks locker room between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. I will also point out the question that was asked wasn't explicitly asking about those two guys. It was kind of beating around the bush a little bit. And Quinn said, let's not beat around the bush. We know about the reports out there. And he honed in on Miller and he honed in on Pettersson. Let's play the clip. Technical producer.
Obviously not to beat around the bush. Everyone knows what the reports are out there. But I think that, everyone expects a lot from each other. There's times where, I get, upset with Millsy. There's times I get upset with Petey. There's times I get upset with Hronek. And that doesn't mean that I don't love those guys and vice versa. And, I'm going to make some bad plays. They're going to make a play where I wish, they saw me here or saw me there. And over the course of playing together for 6 years, I think that those things are normal and they're going to happen. And as far as my leadership, I think just continue to keep everyone on the yellow brick road and what our ultimate goal is, which is short term, having a good game tonight, and long term, being a successful team and getting in the playoffs.
Is it workable though? Like, is it just outside noise?
Yeah, I just think 100% I believe it's workable, and I know it's workable. We saw it last year, very evident, and I think that both of them have been going through their own struggles this year, and I believe in both of them. I think they're great players, great people, and like I said, there's times where we all get into it, but it is a family in here, and we just got to continue to push forward and play the way we want to play. If there's a positive looking forward to this, I think Petey and Millsy would both say that they haven't played their best hockey this year, and we're still where we are in the standings. And I think that that's a positive thing that we can look at, is that two of the best players out there can be better.
Yeah, so the overwhelming opinion I saw on social media about this, which I think is the correct one, is just that Hughes came off looking really good from this. He goes out there, doesn't try to deny what, we've known about this for a few years. It's been alluded to in the past. Now it's, they're talking about it being a problem again. He doesn't deflect or say, no, this is all made up. That's foreshadowing for what Petey did for some reason. But anyways, he comes out and he basically just says, this isn't a problem because we're going to deal with it. We're going to work through it. And again, as the captain, he's talking about how he's going to help lead the team, through whatever they have. And I thought Quinn Hughes just came off really, really well there. I honestly, I was expecting everybody to just deny this. I thought they would come out and just say, no, this is all made up, whatever. Tocchet didn't, Hughes didn't. We're going to get to talk in a second. Obviously, Petey kind of did. Miller, I have a different take on Miller, so we'll get to that in a second. But, like, we know this is a thing. We know it happened. We know these two players have had their issues in the past. But I really like what Hughes said there, and I thought he came across really well.
100%. I thought it was really mature. I thought it was refreshingly candid, acknowledging that, okay, there may have been some differences in the past, and yet trying to emphasize that he believes the relationship was workable, how they believe that as a group and as a team they can be above it. I also thought it was funny that Harona kind of caught a stray. That was funny. But yeah, I thought he handled that question exceptionally well, considering he's not really at the center of it, and I thought that was a true captain-like response by him.
We have someone in the chat saying, every Canucks podcast talks about pretty much the same thing. Yeah, the Canucks. They said, I can't even count how many times I've watched these Hughes, PD, JT. We don't know what other shows you're watching. We got to talk about it ourselves. So with that in mind, let's get to what Tocchet said as well. Jacob, let's pull that up. Rick Tocchet.
All about the crest. It's all about, as long as I coach, it's always about the crest. It's not about the name on the back. And you're going to have arguments. You're going to have fights. I've been fortunate to be a Stanley Cup 3 times, 2 as a coach and 1 as a player, and there's always been something that has galvanized the team or something like that. So whether people are bickering and complaining, it happens all the time, and it's my job to make sure that guys have a voice and you move on from sort of stuff. But you also got to be mature too, and it's not about you don't have to play PlayStation together, you don't have to go to dinner together, but if it's your turn to go to the net, go to the net. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
The big thing there, guys got to be mature. That's what I took from it. That was my big takeaway from what Tocchet said, was him saying, but at the same time, guys have to be mature. Shortly after that interview with Tocchet, we hear Elliot Friedman say that this has taken its toll on people in the Canucks organization. Look, we're not here to speculate. We're not here. People have heard our past shows when we were talking about this very subject. We're just reacting to what's being said here. And again, for Tocchet, like, he came out, addressed it full force. He even said at the start of that, and it wasn't in the clip, but he even said, like, I'm surprised you guys didn't request Miller and Petey. Like, to me, that just says that the organization wants these players to just get over it and face the noise. And honestly, like, people ask, you team Miller, you team Pettersson. I've always been on team just get over it. You're paid millions of dollars, figure it out.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting. The initial question wasn't included in that clip, but the question PJ asked was just generally, what do you do when two teammates, what do you do as a coach if 2 teammates are having a hard time getting along? It didn't even specifically, like, yeah, the insinuation is, okay, it's probably around the reports of Miller and Pettersson, but clearly Tocchet, just like Quinn, didn't shy away from the premise that maybe maybe JT and PD have had some friction in the past, and again, he straight up asked the media, why didn't you guys request them, and was encouraging the media pool to talk to those guys. So again, just Tocchet nailed it. Just, it's team first, it's crest first, and this shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and then, of course, the media did request JT after the game. He wasn't available. He spoke the next day. We'll get to him in a second. But PD did speak post-game, and there was some confusion I saw online as well, because obviously the clip that's going around is PD's response to being asked by Dan Murphy about the whole JT thing. PD answered questions about the game for like 3 minutes before that. So people had this idea that PD answered his post-game media avail started. He got asked a question about JT, asked a follow-up, said, oh my gosh, next question, and then stormed off. That's not what happened. Like, that was the end of it too. This idea, not to defend PD too hard here, because I think he came off very poorly here, but this idea that he sat there and stormed off angrily because he didn't want to do media anymore, like, nobody asked him a question. There was that pause. Everybody lifted their mics and said, thanks, Elias, and he walked away. Like, and yes, I know it was written in the Stanchies and reported by Wyatt Arndt as well that there was another comment to the media as he was walking away. But this idea that he took one question and stormed off is just wrong. So, let's just make sure we have the facts straight. But let's hear from Elias Pettersson. This is what he had to say post-game, as if he didn't hear what was said in the morning. That's what really threw me off. But yeah, PD post-game here.
About all the chatter around recently, Elias, with what you and JT and perhaps being some friction.
That's still going on?
Yeah, well, it has been.
Well, it's the same answer. It's good. I don't know why people still try and make up. Excuse my language, but yeah, that's my response to it.
So it hasn't been distracting.
Oh my God. Next question.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, he doesn't come off great there, especially in the context of Hughes and Tocchet's responses to it in the morning.
Well, he probably wishes he could have that moment back just because he doesn't like making headlines, and that clip went viral. I'm sure that if he had an opportunity to redo that, he would have preferred a more even keel, sort of measured response that wouldn't have sort of fanned the flames of this. But I'm not going to criticize him for the way that he responded to that. I mean, think about the context. I think the question is totally fair because that's the first time the media had an opportunity to ask about him, and
you don't know when you're going to speak to him next time. That's
100%.
We don't know when we're going to speak to him next.
Plus, it's at the end as opposed to, it's not like first question. But also think about it from Pettersson's situation. They just lost an OT game. The team is struggling. He hasn't had a point in 6 games. He's probably really frustrated with the season as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why he's frustrated about having to field a question about a reported rift at the moment.
Yep, and that's kind of my take on JT, especially with what he came out and said. And it's interesting that you're applying that logic for PD as well, because for me, the thing that I can't get over is it's just like, did he not hear what was said in the morning by Hughes and Tocchet? And that's just kind of what, and I don't know the answer to that. Like, maybe nobody briefed him on that. I would assume that he was, though. So I don't know. We're not going to get into that. JT's response, on the other hand, I wanted to talk about a little bit here, and let's just get to it right away. I think we spent enough time on this. Let's hear from JT Miller, what he had to say.
You guys, in a sense, of the outer world have created this thing. Like, this isn't a thing. So, am I bothered? No, but you guys are just wasting your time.
How tired are you about hearing of it?
I don't care. You guys want to talk about it? You want to ask me all you want. I can bring up PD and we can do the interview together if that would make you guys happy.
What about shutting out the noise, JT? This team has always been so good about it, no matter what year it is, about anything regarding the team.
Listen, I have a lot of stuff to worry about right now for myself. I'm not worried about any noise. The noise is between my ears, and I'm trying to figure out how to play a good 200-foot game for the team.
But you know what you mean to this group, and Petey obviously knows what he means to this group. And right now, not a whole lot happening for either one of you guys. Like, can this team get where it needs to go without production from you two?
Where do we want to go?
I would assume to the playoffs first of all,
right.
And beyond that.
Okay. So it'd be great if we could have 100 points for sure. That would be ideal, right? So we're just trying to play the right way. Points will come when they come.
Could have predicted that one. Like, I could have predicted that's how JT would have responded. And really, I don't have too much of an issue with that. Like, he's making it very clear that he's not super apologetic about it, and he's not, like, I didn't have an issue with how JT came across there. I really didn't. Like, I thought he handled that well.
Well, he's also old school in the sense that he's legitimately not plugged in on what's going on. He's not on Twitter. Like, some players will say that they don't pay attention to the outside noise, but trust me, and having actually spoken to a lot of players just around the league, a lot of them are tuned in, even though they don't say they are. But JT genuinely is just focused on his own life, focused on his own game. And I believe him when he says he genuinely doesn't care about whatever the outside noise is.
Yeah. And the thing that I was going to add was just that at the start, he says, like, you guys have created this thing in a sense, because, like, he's talked about this in the past. 2 years ago, he spoke with Ian McIntyre, talked about how he's had an up and down relationship with Elias Pettersson. Like, he's pointing out that this is getting out of control because of how much it's getting out and being talked about. Like, I understand that. And I understand that from his perspective, why he would say that, for sure. So I just wanted to add that as well. Like, he didn't come out and say, no, this is all made up. Nothing's happened. This is not true. He just said, like, this isn't a thing. And I think what he means there is, like, this isn't a thing in the Canucks locker room anymore. It's just not something that they're worried about, or certainly that he's not worried about.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm just at the point. I just want to talk about the hockey.
Likewise,
I'm kind of, and again, we don't on this show we're reacting to whatever comes out. We have to talk about the main news and headlines and all of that. But I'm sure a lot of people in this market can agree that it just became a soap opera over the weekend, just
Yeah, it was
ballooned
ridiculous.
way out of control. And the issue is, even if you turn your attention to the on ice product and you're like, okay, let's strictly focus on the Canucks, Pettersson and Miller are still at the center of the story for all the wrong reasons, because of their lack of production, because they aren't doing their part, lifting the load and contributing to this team right now. And ultimately, that's the quickest way to drown out all this noise, to quiet the talk in this market. Is, do you think anybody's talking about this if the two of them start producing, the team gets on a bit of a roll? No, it's absolutely gonna die down. So that's what I'm hoping, is that these guys on the ice can figure it out, and naturally all the other discussion, all the other BS will drown out.
If they had won that game at the 4-on-4 at the end of the game, you know what I'm talking about, right? Before overtime, they had Pettersson, they had Miller out on a 4-on-4. If they had won that game, this is all gone already. If they had won that game with those two on the ice, it's all gone. It's all gone. But yeah, I agree with you. This is why the title of the show is Moving On from Riftgate. The only way that this ever gets brought up again is if the losing continues and the leaks continue and the reports continue and someone talks about it. Someone on the team talks about it. That's the only way we'll be talking about it again. I think I'm done talking about this off-ice stuff. It's like what we talked about on Friday's show as well, where we just didn't want to talk about it, and we don't want to sit here and speculate. So let's talk about what we do know, and that's that neither of these guys are performing very well on the ice. Harm, let's get into the game against the Ottawa Senators. Just quickly emptying out my notebook here. I thought Susie Juleson pairing, I thought they've just reached their limit. The first goal of the game, Juleson turns the puck over, and it's those kind of goals that I'm talking about when I say everything starts from the back end. And I talked about, getting a forecheck started. And the big problem with the Bruce Boudreau era was when teams would start to apply a little bit of pressure on the Canucks, their defenseman would throw it up the boards. Defenseman holds it in at the line, and then the puck's in the back of their net. This case, it was Thomas Chabot, and that's exactly what happened. Juleson misses Besser with the breakout pass. I will listen to people that say Besser should have had more effort on the play, but at the end of the day, it's Juleson right to Thomas Chabot, and then it's in the back of the Canucks net. I just thought that pairing has just kind of, after a few strong games, they've kind of worn out their welcome.
They played poorly, but I can't get over how egregious the mistakes were by forwards on two of the goals against.
Yep.
On that first goal, I really think Besser should have been able to get to that pass.
Yep.
It wasn't a perfect pass, but
he also should have been there. Like, you're supposed to be there on the breakout.
Honestly, I looked at that and went, that's more on Brock in my mind than it is on Juleson.
Sure.
To be totally honest with you, especially because I expect Brock, given the evolution of his two-way play, how much he's improved away from the puck, my bar or expectation for how good Besser can be defensively has gone up tremendously compared to, let's say, his rookie or sophomore campaign. I expect Besser to be able to make that play. He was slow reacting to that loose puck, and especially when it's in the defensive zone like that. In my opinion, the onus was on him, and not to bury him, because he obviously scored 2 goals and is one of the biggest reasons why the Canucks at least got a point out of it. But I think that context needs to be mentioned as well, because last season this team's identity, it wasn't just defending because their blue line is great. It's their wingers and forward and centermen were exceptional about supporting the defensemen in their own end as well. And the 2-on-1 goal that the Senators scored against that pair as well. Yeah, Juleson's out of position. That's a bad pinch. You just can't make that read in that moment. But what does Tocchet always talk about is you can't compound mistakes, and that's where the puck was flipped up in the neutral zone. Danton Heinen flubbed an opportunity to glove the puck down. That's the only reason the 2-on-1 happened from that standpoint. Even after Juleson had sort of pinched and put himself out of position, that should not have been a 2-on-1 based off the position Heinen was in to put the fire out, and he just didn't.
Okay, JT Miller here. Thought he was just dreadful in the defensive end. I will say this idea that he It was just invisible. I don't buy that. Like, I think JT was instrumental in 3 of those goals that the Canucks scored. Phil DiGiuseppe was really good on the forecheck, but JT driving the lane played a huge role in those goals that the Canucks scored. The role that he played, I thought was strong on the offensive end, but it was a good way to kind of encapsulate JT's game where it's like, he can hurt you. Like, he can really, really hurt you, and that's what he did. The shorthanded goal against, that's just JT's man. That was what Tocchet said post-game as well. I don't think we need to overanalyze it. We know that this sometimes happens with his game, and I think, look, if you're doing a Miller versus Pettersson thing, I think this is the easiest way to put it, is like, JT can lose you games, PD won't win you games when both guys are at their absolute worst. But they're both paid a lot of money, and PD's paid to win games. He's paid to put up points to win games, and JT's paid to not lose you games, even though both of those things are happening right now for both of those guys.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is Pettersson's floor is higher. Like, when he has a bad game, he's not like actively turning pucks over or making these big defensive mistakes. But offensively, of course, we can agree that Pettersson's impact it's not just that it's fallen way short of expectations, but that's where Miller has at least chipped and been more consistent about contributing. Yeah, I mean, the shorthanded one was a really bad look. I think the overtime one too is a reminder that JT is an interesting player with his foot speed in that he's quick enough, but quick enough to like get around the ice pretty well, but he has to identify and make reads before it's too late. What I mean by that is a lot of people were criticizing how slow he was on the Jake Sanderson overtime winner. And yeah, that's his guy. But the issue was how long it took him to initially pick Sanderson up, because Sanderson, I don't know how much Jake Sanderson you watch, he can absolutely fly up and down the ice. And once it becomes JT and Sanderson are starting from the same position and are in a foot race, JT's never going to win that race. And it's not because he's slow. It's just that Jake Sanderson is that brilliant of a skater. The mistake there was that it took him too long to initially pick up on the fact that Sanderson was gonna fly up the ice, join the rush, and it's that sort of attention to detail, the shoulder checks, that make all the difference with JT's game. That's one thing that he did really well when you look at why he took such a big defensive step last season. Is he was always scanning the ice for threats. He was picking them up really early. He was picking them up often, and that's why he looks so engaged away from the puck. I think when his reads are slow, it makes him look less engaged. And on that OT winner, to me, that's not so much a lack of effort thing as it is a lack of, like, you just gotta be more aware and pick up your check quicker than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have that written down that one was also on him. Again, not as egregious as a shorthanded goal, because again, you're on a power play, but certainly not his best night on the defensive end of the ice. Pettersson, he's not producing points. It's just not good enough right now from Elias Pettersson, not good enough from JT Miller. That's the real story. We talked about it on Friday. That's the real story. These guys don't have 5-on-5 goals. I was going to save this for anyone else, but I just need to tell you, and this isn't even me doing a Flames bit. I was just doing some research to do a Flames bit, but like, Jonathan Huberdeau has 13 goals in the year. 9 of those are at even strength. We were just talking about how these two guys, these two star players for the Canucks, have 4 combined, and I know JT missed time, so that's why maybe he only has 1, but still, you've had enough games to have more than 1 as a star player for this team, and PD as well. 3 5-on-5 goals, whereas Huberdeau has 9. Nassim Kadri's got 11 at even strength. Like, you need to start producing at even strength, these two. You have to.
Well, we should clarify the difference between 5-on-5 and even strength.
Yes,
I absolutely agree with the overall point, but I think JT's got 4 or 5 at even strength, just one of them at 5-on-5.
Yep.
But your overall point stands. I wrote an article today where I looked at the top 16 teams in the NHL by points percentage as of last night. Flames were among them, and looked at how many even strength goals they've gotten from their top 2 centermen. And the Canucks were the only team in that top 16 where Miller and Pettersson have combined for less than 10 even strength goals. They're at 9 between them. That's really concerning, because Vancouver's 1-2 punch down the middle should be an advantage on a night-to-night basis against most teams. It should be winning them games rather than a part of their roster that is underperforming relative to other playoff caliber opponents.
Okay, some positives from this game. Oh no, before the positives, didn't really like Kevin Lankinen's game. He didn't lose them the game, but in the past starts he's made for this team, like he would come up with a big save and kind of shift the momentum for them the other way. And I'm not saying he didn't make any tough saves, but we've seen more from Kevin Lankinen than what we saw on Saturday against the Senators. So I just want to get that in there. Didn't love what I saw from Kevin Lankinen. Again, the loss isn't on him, but you want to see a little bit more from Kevin Lankinen just because that's what we've gotten used to seeing from Kevin Lankinen. Now to the positives. Quinn Hughes, Harm, 1 goal, 2 assists, just makes magic happen every time he's out there.
Honestly, with every night that he dominates like that, it just makes me that much more worried that the Canucks are going to flush an MVP caliber season by him down the toilet. Like, that's the big concern here. That's the big storyline that everybody should be focusing on, is the risk that we're watching a historic all-time season by this defenseman and the Canucks are barely above the playoff bar. Now they have the potential to get their act together and not waste the season, but that's the biggest thing that keeps lingering in my mind with every performance like that. I mean, the offense runs through him at this point. I can't name another defenseman in the NHL that you can run your offense through just because of how difficult it is. Just positionally, when Hughes gets the puck, he starts at the point, right? He doesn't get the advantage of being a forward and you're already up ice, and you're already closer to the slot, closer to the net. He has to start from the left point, and oftentimes when the opposition is already in their defensive structure, and he has to single-handedly find ways to break that down and create grade A scoring chances by himself because he's the only consistent offensive driver right now. It is insane the level that he's playing at right now. And on the one hand, you want to appreciate it and soak it in because Lord knows the Canucks have never had a defenseman of this caliber before. But also at the same time, it sort of just raises the urgency that the rest of the team needs to pick up the slack and give this guy some help, because it is rare to, like, how many seasons are you going to get where you get a player performing at this type of MVP caliber level?
You're not going to get that very often. You're hoping that you're going to get it more often from Quinn Hughes, but he's just so good right now. I want to quickly mention that in anyone else, each of us, Jacob as well, we're going to give a one wish for the Canucks on their Christmas list. I'll tell you now, and we're going to get to it later, but mine's Rasmus Andersson. Mine's been Rasmus Andersson since September. I did my Christmas shopping early. I want me some Rasmus Andersson on this team. It goes to what you just said, Harm, about how, you know, Hughes is so good. He's such a catalyst that the offense always runs through him. Adding another catalyst to this team in Andersson, I'm a big proponent of everything starts from the back end. You know, people in the chat are even talking about, I saw Michael Chow talking about, it's so hard for the Canucks to get a forecheck going because they're always having to chip the puck in and change. Yeah, because things don't start until Hughes is on the ice. So adding another catalyst in Andersson, I'll get to that later in anyone else. But the reason I bring that up is because I want people in the chat, people watching this live, let us know your one Canucks Christmas wish as we do our final show before Christmas here. Let's preview the game. Oh no, last thing. I think this is the best 3-game stretch we've seen from Vinny Desharnais since he signed in Vancouver, and it's getting lost because there's so much drama going on. People say you hear the same thing on every show. I'm confident that nobody else is talking about Vincent Desharnais. Absolutely loving what I'm seeing from Big Vinny right now. Harman's looking up numbers. I can see you pulling up.
I'm not looking up numbers.
Oh, thank God. Okay, because my eye test is telling me that this is the best Vinny's looked all season, and I wanted to give a shout out to Vincent Desharnais, who's looked good. I thought he's looked great.
He's been better. I'd have to think about best stretch of the season because when he was with Brandstrom, there was a while when they were dummying and crushing teams on the third pair, but he's definitely been better. I'll give you that.
Okay, let's get to tonight's game against San Jose Sharks. Folks, note the start time, 6 o'clock start. It is an Amazon Prime game. If you have a grandparent, I suggest you go figure out how they're going to go watch that game, because that's what I'm doing tonight. People ask for the no update. He doesn't even have Wi-Fi, so I'm going to go there, hotspot my computer, put my computer with an HDMI cord to his TV, and that's how we're going to watch tonight's game, the Amazon Prime broadcast. 6 o'clock start. Make sure you don't miss it. Sharks, Canucks. I've talked about the Prime broadcasts all season long. I like them. Don't love the lack of accessibility for people that don't have Amazon Prime, but I do like the broadcasts and what they've actually put out. It's been a good product. So do you know, Jacob, maybe you know, anybody in the chat know, is Mark Messier in Vancouver? Like, is he doing the intermission because he's on the intermission panel on all of these Prime broadcasts. Is he here? Like, is he in Vancouver? Do we know?
I don't know. Jacob, do you know?
Tonight? We'll find out tonight.
I am not aware, but I don't know. It might be a surprise if he.
I thought he would be like, "Oh, it's Christmas. I'm not working."
Well, any opportunity for him to come back to his old stomping grounds of Vancouver, I'm sure he's gonna relish at the opportunity to.
I thought you were gonna say any opportunity to quit on his team, he would take that opportunity, which is why he wouldn't be on the broadcast tonight. But we'll see. Maybe Messier will be on the broadcast tonight. Harm. Sharks Canucks, obviously the big story here. Macklin Celebrini looks like the front runner for the Calder. Local boy gets to play in front of home friends and family. And the really cool thing, like, he's just going to stick around. He's already here for the holidays. A lot of guys got to fly home. Like, you fly back to San Jose and then they have to fly home. He's just going to stick here, I would assume. He's just going to stay back.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I got to thank you because I'm going to the game tonight. I'm covering it. Until you mentioned it was a 6 p.m. start time, I did not know it was a 6 p.m. start time. I just assumed it was going to be 7 o'clock. And so,
have you ever done that?
To you, man.
Have you ever shown up like late for a game that you thought started an hour earlier?
I have done that once.
No way.
I showed up like 5 minutes into the first period. So
that's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
That's still really
and I didn't have to
funny.
write off the game, so I was off the hook there. But yeah, it would have been pretty crappy if I'm sure I would have figured it out some point. Because I would have been checking Twitter early and been like 5 o'clock or like 5:15. People are tweeting out warm-up lines, and I would have just like scampered. I probably would have made it on time.
Yeah.
But at least now I know ahead of time.
Now you know ahead of time. Okay,
thanks, buddy.
Let's talk about this game. Yaroslav Askarov starts in net. Longtime listeners of this show know that I don't like him very much.
He's been great.
He's been so good. This is
a key game for your brand because
it absolutely is.
He was so entertaining to watch. I think it was on Saturday against the Oilers. And he's rocking a really high save percentage through 3 games.
928. He's got 928 on the year. Yeah, Yaroslav Askarov, he's off to a pretty good start to his NHL career after I told everybody he was the most overrated goalie in the 2020 draft. Still 11th overall. Anyways, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. He's got a long career ahead of him. Anyways, Faber's in the chat. There we go. I forgot Faber was watching today's show. I was playing Call of Duty with Chris right before the show went to air. He said he was going to watch this show. Shout out Chris Faber. There's your Chris Faber mention on the bingo board, folks. But Yaroslav Askarov starts in net. Yeah, longtime listeners of this show know that not the biggest fan of Yaroslav Askarov. But up front, what else can we expect from the San Jose Sharks tonight, Harm?
Yeah, so they've got an interesting top 6 group. They've overachieved there. I mean, not only do you have Celebrini, but William Eklund, he's the piece in San Jose that I don't think enough people talk about. Really creative playmaking winger. He's up to 26 points in 35 games, only 21 years old. He's an exciting part of their young core. Another name to sort of watch in the top 6 for sure. Mikhail Granlund has
career year, baby.
He's clipping at like a point per game pace. When everyone, myself included, thought he was washed when he initially got traded from Nashville to Pittsburgh, had an awful run as Pittsburgh's third line center, and then was dumped as a pure cap move as part of the Erik Karlsson trade there. So he's killing it. Will Smith, after a slow start, is starting to pick things up a little bit. You still got Toffoli. So they've got some pieces, some offense. Even you got Zetterlund on the third line. I'm a big Zetterlund guy. He's got 11 goals. So their forward group has weapons. It's the back end that the Canucks really have to exploit, especially with, I don't know if Jake Wallman's going to play. I saw some.
He's not playing. He's not playing.
So he's been by far their best defenseman. And when you look at the Sharks blue line on paper, Henry Thrun, Cody Ceci, Mario Ferraro, Timothy Liljegren, Muck Medulin, and then Jan Ruda. That decor you can absolutely expose. That is the worst blue line in the NHL.
Fair enough. Okay. This is just a game that I think you hope the Canucks can win at the end of the day. We're not going to do a show tomorrow, but we probably should if they lose tonight to the San Jose Sharks with everything going on with this team. This is a game that you just hope, look, home game right before Christmas. This is a game you're hoping the Canucks show up for, right? Like, show up for your fans. You haven't given them much to cheer about on home ice this year. Just show up. Like, show up, put in a good effort, and the rest will follow suit for the Canucks tonight. Okay, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. We were there for the first viewing party of the season back on October 19th, and we're going to be there for the rest throughout the year, so don't miss out. But even if we're not there, you certainly should be. Just minutes from the arena, come by before and after the game or whatever event you're downtown for. With arcade games, weekly drink specials, and the recently updated street food menu, Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Okay, I have a few things to kind of empty out here, Harm. I already talked about the Flame stuff. Jonathan Huberdeau's up to 13 goals. Nazem Kadri also up to 13 goals. 9 of those are at even strength for Huberdeau. 11 of those are at even strength for Kadri. I want to quickly talk about the Western Conference wildcard picture right now, because Seattle's lost 5 straight. Like, I think it's safe to say that they're out of it. Like, I don't think anybody was really worried about that. But, like, Utah's 7-1-2 in their last 10. Edmonton and Vegas are taking off to this point that it's like, okay, the Pacific is probably going to be one of Edmonton or Vegas. Obviously, it was a turtle derby to start the year, but those two are both taking off, Vegas and Edmonton. So, just the Western Conference wildcard picture. I don't want to say you're worried about it, but, like, Calgary still isn't going away. Wagon Flames bit aside. Like, the fact of the matter is they're still right there where the Canucks want to be in the wildcard picture. Utah's there now too. Don't think you're too worried about St. Louis, but, like, how do you look at the wildcard picture right now as we head into Christmas?
Utah's the main threat, especially because that looked to me like a legitimately good team when the two teams met in their recent matchup. And again, like, underlying numbers are really promising. They don't profile as a team that's just going to fall off a cliff in the second half. They're a young, motivated group. They look like they're turning a corner. Now, I'm still confident that the Canucks will figure things out. I'm not worried about their playoff chances at this point, but I think it's safe to say right now, with Utah just 1 point back, that the Canucks don't have any margin for error anymore. They'd built up a cushion after crushing that late November road trip.
Yep.
Where we were talking about how they're still finding ways to win despite all the adversity, but now they lost all of that with some of their struggles, losing seven of their last 10 games. It's go time, especially now. Like, there are no excuses when it comes to, like, Filip Hronek's the only major injury on the roster, and I can point to a ton of teams around the NHL that have at least one core piece that's out of lineup. They have the necessary talent to get this job done. They just need to execute and bring a consistent work rate. I think that's been a disappointing theme throughout December. Is it's not just that the results aren't there. There are just some nights where they flat up don't show up, and they're giving up odd man rushes. They're giving up a million scoring chances to, like, St. Louis or Boston. And yet we know that defensively they have it in them to be a really high-end team. When you look at the way that they defended against Florida, when you look at the way that they defended against Colorado, especially now that the margin has disappeared, it's time for them to really buckle down and be like, all right, we got to get our stuff together. There's no time to waste here. Where we're still good, but we can't get complacent.
January gets tough too. The January schedule. Not that December wasn't tough, but there's some tough opponents on that January schedule as well. So it is especially against the Sharks. It's time to get the job done. Time to figure it out. But hey, they're gonna benefit from this Christmas break, and then they come back and play Seattle, and then they play Calgary. Again, two teams that they should be able to at least hang with. Like, we're not talking about top tier teams or anything like that. Whereas when you get into January,
let's not even say beat, flat out beat.
Well, the Flames,
Yeah, okay.
No, like
it should beat. I'm not saying they will beat. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed schedule victory, but like, come on, you got Seattle and Calgary on the schedule. and you need points, like you don't have a cushion, you
San
should beat those
Jose,
teams.
San Jose and Seattle, you should beat. Calgary, you'd like to beat, but like Calgary has played well. I'm not doing a bit.
Let's go Calgary Flames hockey team.
I don't care that they're tied in points. You should beat the Calgary Flames.
Sure. Fair enough. The other team we haven't even talked about, Harm, Dallas Stars, not even in a playoff spot right now. Like, they're going to finish in a wild card spot. So we only talked about the Pacific Division teams there, and obviously Utah as well, but like Dallas as well. There's not that many spots up for grab. It's going to be tight. It's going to be tight, and the Canucks need to get some points here. It's time to get some points. You can't waste this MVP season from Quinn Hughes. But we're at 40 minutes now. Let's get to some stuff from the chat. Karin in the chat said, if Messier is a part of the broadcast, I'm going to peel my eyelids off. Karin also said, with the lack of mobility we've seen from the bottom two pairs, what is the main reason Brannstrom is being kept out of the lineup? Even when he's struggling, Brannstrom's puck movement is so important. Harm, I was looking at it and talking about Eric Brannstrom and what he means to this team. I've seen enough from Derek Forbert and Vincent Desharnais in the past few games that I'm like, okay, like, I don't think Eric Brannstrom is going this miraculous step up on either of those guys right now. I'm fine with keeping the same lineup. Like, if Brannstrom doesn't get in tonight, I will say I wouldn't be surprised, and I also don't think it's this egregious decision to not have him in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, the issue is he's struggled even on the puck moving side of things lately, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In the recent games, he was icing pucks. He took a delay game penalty against Colorado. It's not just that away from the puck in the defensive zone, he was, let's say, losing battles or not always in the right position. Even his work with the puck, he looked to me like a player that has lost some confidence, that has lost some of his composure, that is looking to make the safe play a little bit more often, which if Eric Brannstrom is looking to make the safe play, that's problematic because the only reason he's in the lineup is because he has the creativity and skill to not just make the play that to flip the puck out and give it right back to the other team, but actually help the team retain possession on the breakout. I mean, when he first drew into the lineup, we remember the way that he was able to wheel around the net and use not just his outlet passing ability, but his skating to create separation, to shake off forecheckers. I haven't seen any of that from him lately. So look, he'll get back in the lineup at some point if the blue line and the team continues struggling. But right now, I'm not going to sit here and criticize the coaching staff for not having him in the lineup when he's even struggled on the puck moving front in his last few appearances.
Okay, Corey Hergott in the chat. Long time listeners of the show remember riding the bus with Corey Hergott. Really old segment on this show. Corey Hergott's in the chat. He said, if Petey and Miller don't show up at the rink together riding scooters today, the Canucks PR department is doing it wrong. I love it. Give me one of those. Give me arm in arm, walk into the rink. Don't know if you could convince those guys to do that. But anyways, let's see. This last one. Jesse C. You guys are in more media scrums than us. How often do players get asked about cap-related questions? Are they ever asked about performance of themselves or others related to cap hit? They must know the window is the current Demko Hughes contracts, right? Players are never asked about this, but also, they know. Like, they know the window. They're not... It's not totally lost on them, these things that we're talking about when it comes to your best chance at competing is, like, they all know that Quinn's going to get a big raise. The players all know it, but no, that's not usually a line that's crossed, is asking players about salary. In fact, actually, no, I shouldn't tell that story. An NHL... No, I'm not going to tell that story. One time a coach...
Ooh.
Okay, I'll tell the story. Not specific to any team. One time a coach... at a practice said something to a player along the lines of, we're paying you how much and you're playing like this? And the player did not like that. That's all I'll say. A team, a player, and a coach. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
That's a great story, but that's probably also happened like a lot of times.
Probably. But anyways, moving on, Harv. Come on. Moving on. Don't get me in trouble here. Moving on. Okay. I told you to do this. This is your homework. Your one Christmas wish for the Canucks. You're writing a letter to Santa. Dear Santa Claus, not a Dear Sydney letter. Mine is Rasmus Anderson. Dear Santa Claus, Please put Rasmus Anderson in Vancouver. I don't know how the Canucks are going to trade for him. I don't know what the trade package is going to look like. I'm becoming increasingly more convinced that there's not a trade package that you could overpay for a guy that you're going to have this year and next at $4.5 million and is going to be a catalyst similar to Quinn Hughes that your team desperately needs, where when he's on the ice, you're going to be able to create. It's going to push a guy like Tyler Myers down to the third pair. Harm, for me, if I had one wish for this team, is that they could get Rasmus Anderson.
My Christmas wish would be the getting back the elite version of Elias Pettersson. Now, whether it's related to his knee tendonitis, confidence, all those things, just can we get the version of PD from 2 years ago where he was scoring 100 points and was the not just scoring 100 points and the best forward, but he was the best player in the team, period. Better than Thatcher Demko, better than Quinn Hughes, better than JT Miller that year. He was the MVP. It's just the team didn't have a ton of success that year, so it wasn't. It didn't draw a ton of headlines necessarily. So that's the biggest thing that I look for, because ultimately, I don't think many people, when we're having this conversation around how concerned are you about the state of the team, I don't think fans are worried about, oh, they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't think they're panicking about that. It's if and when the team gets to the postseason, are they going to be able to do anything if Pettersson is operating at this type of level?
Yep.
And the elite version of him would absolutely give this team a huge shot in the arm, not only at even strength, but even on a power play. I mean, when Pettersson first broke into the league, we remember how much of a cannon his one-timer was, how he terrorized goaltenders with it, and how in turn penalty killers started cheating to his side, which meant the other four players on the power play had more space to operate. Even just that type of gravitational effect would give the power play a huge boost, and we know how vital the man advantage is going to be the remainder of the way and in the playoffs, in determining whether this team can score enough to play at a high level.
Okay, final thing. Did you see this? Chris Kreider was a healthy scratch today ahead of the Rangers game against the Devils. Jacob Markstrom picks up back-to-back shutouts in a 5-0 Devils win because the Rangers took 12 shots on goal without Chris Kreider. There are major problems in New York. It's getting bad. Speaking of teams that are, like Canucks were dominating the headlines in the, it was Buffalo a week ago. Then it was the Canucks over the weekend. Rangers say, hold my beer, because holy smokes, there are going to be changes in New York. There has to be. Chris Kreider's a healthy scratch, and then you lose 5-0. 12 shots on goal. It's just something's got to give in New York. Something has to give. But we're in a rush. We got to get out of here. So let's get to... Actually, Jacob, your schedule. We have a schedule for next week that you wanted to share? Oh, there it is. Okay. Jacob, put it on a graphic. Have we talked about the schedule? I didn't know I was working on Friday. I kid, of course. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Our plan was Friday so we can preview the Saturday game.
Yes. No show Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day. But we will be back on Friday. We'll break down the game against the San Jose Sharks. Hopefully it's a win, and we'll preview the Saturday game against the Seattle Kraken as well. But that's our schedule. Folks, have yourself a Merry Christmas. Enjoy some time with family. If you got a grandparent, go watch the Amazon Prime game with them tonight. They're going to have trouble getting it on. Don't try to help them over the phone. Go see your grandparents. Go see your parents if they're elderly as well. I'm going to watch the game with my grandpa tonight, and I'm very much so looking forward to it. Because the other thing, you flip it to HDMI and they look at you like, oh my gosh, like my grandson is such a tech wizard. I'm going to be putting wires behind the TV. I'm about to, it's going to be a whole different ball game tonight. But I'm looking forward to the game tonight. I'm looking forward to the Prime broadcast, I must say.
Yeah, Quad's taking victory laps at Nono's house for figuring out the HDMI cable. I can vividly picture that.
That's a good one, Harv. Okay. Bet365 Bet of the Day brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. Harm, we were just talking about the Utah Hockey Club, and we were talking about how they're making noise. They are taking on the Dallas Stars tonight, and we are taking them. We are taking Utah money line at plus 145 odds against the Dallas Stars. They are the underdog. We are going with Utah. That was our Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. It must be 90 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Harm, Jacob, everybody watching the show, have a great Christmas. Any final thoughts, Harm? Anything you want to say?
No, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. It's going to be, I love Christmas. You could tell. I got my hat, everything. I'm going to get a new sweater.
I just realized the way that I said that, it wasn't clear enough that it was no comma Merry Christmas. I just said no Merry Christmas.
I understood
no
what you meant.
comma Merry Christmas.
That pause is very necessary. Okay. We'll close it out there for my co-host, Harman, our technical producer, Jacob Bazar. My name is Igor Vedrelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us.